Welcome to another insightful episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. In this podcast, Mary Catherine Johnson and Evan Johnson highlight the successes and struggles of parents in business. They share how to be the example of success in entrepreneurship to foster the same in your child, and so much more. Are you ready to power up?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Parent Entrepreneur Power Podcast. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Mary Catherine Johnson, as always. And we have a guest that I think both of us are very, very excited about. Cliff Ravenscraft is here. Welcome, Cliff.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
We are very, very excited to have you here. I don't know how this could be possible, but I'm sure there are some members of the audience who don't know who you are. And so for those people, give us the brief synopsis that I'm sure you have done many times. Who are you and what do you do?
Wow, who am I? Gosh, I am a child of the creator of all things, and I'm here to learn and grow and make everyone else's life less painful and have less suffering. That's an overview, but I think probably what you're expecting is a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey. And I'll just say this, I am a guy who was raised for most of his entire adult life to be an employee. But in 2007, I had basically had a hobby that became an all-consuming passion for podcasting. I had actually started podcasting in 2005, but by 2007, it was all-consuming. And so I made a decision that I wanted to leave a career as an insurance agent, working in a family-run insurance agency owned by my mom and dad. And I wanted to go out and start my own business, doing what I felt most called to do in this world, which is to use my voice to entertain, educate, encourage, and inspire people around the world to pursue whatever life they felt called to live and to break free from anything that's holding them back. And I didn't know how I could afford to go out and do this lifestyle where I could just create content and encourage and inspire people. So I figured, well, I've got this one marketable skill that has come up. With all of my devotion to podcasting and learning how to do podcasts and stuff like that, I had thousands of people who were asking me, can you teach me how to podcast? So I figure, well, instead of selling insurance, I'll just charge people and teach them how to podcast. If they want to pay me to learn how to podcast, I can do that. And in my free time, I can create all that content I want to create. And so that's how I got started in January 2008, became full-time self-employed and built what was called Podcast Answer Man as my brand to a $500,000 a year business. It didn't happen overnight. In fact, there was a long story about how challenging it was, especially the first year working around the clock, making almost no money and ending up in the hospital in Celebration. But long story made short, for at least a decade, maybe 11 years, I was the Podcast Answer Man, helped over 40,000 people around the world successfully launch their podcast. And then I decided, you know what, I'm kind of bored of being the podcast consultant. It's not what I ever really wanted to do. I just got so busy and I'm making so much money. It's like I could have just stayed in insurance if I wanted to do this all day. I really want to have meaningful conversations with people and transform their lives. And so that desire came about quite a while ago. I would say probably all the way back to 2014. I was like, you know what? I really want to just do what I want to do, but still, can I make money doing it? At this point, I realized, well, gosh, with all the experience I have with the things that I learned through my entrepreneurial journey, I could probably make it as a coach, both in life, business, career, mindset, all of these different things. And I began to dream what that would look like. And then over the next 3 to 5 years, I began a process of just devoting myself to what I wanted my life to look like, which is what it looks like today, where I'm a full-time life and transformational coach, helping people break free from anything that's holding them back, helping them find more success in their business, all that good stuff. That's a little overview of who I am and what I've been up to.
That's amazing. That is impressive. That's definitely been inspiring to me. You know, switching from podcasting to coaching, because that's exactly what I'm doing as well. So that's very exciting.
Yes. And I remember, Cliff, when we were both at Social Media Marketing World and you were doing the first Live the Dream. What an amazing journey that was that you were on. And that was what, I think probably 2018, 17, something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
2018.
yeah, that was, it was just incredible. So, and I know from all that time, because, first off, how many kids do you have and how old are they?
I have 3 children, and my goodness, they've grown so fast. So I think Megan is now 21, Matthew is 19, and my youngest is 16.
Wow.
So they've definitely grown up with dad in entrepreneurial pursuits, and not just dad. Your wife is the same, is on the journey with you. I know that, but just with all of your entrepreneurial pursuits. And so, first off, how do they look at it as coming into young adults? Have they looked at possibly entrepreneurship as their own adventure?
I've certainly steered them towards the benefits of entrepreneurship as a journey. None of them seem committed to any particular path. And for me personally, I I'm not too concerned about that. I didn't discover really who I am and what I most wanted to do in this world until I was, in my late 30s, early 40s. So, and I'm still figuring it out, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's really any rush for them, whatever they want to do. What I can tell you is, and I know I don't want to jump around too much about where you want to direct the conversation, but that I've given each of my kids the opportunity, if they want to come work in my business. And boy, did that utterly fail with my first attempt with my oldest daughter. Wow, that did not go well. And then when my son, actually, he never came to work for me in my business. He wanted my help in helping him launch his own business, which I think I think I prompted the idea. It's like, why don't you start something like this? I'll pay for you to go through a course on how to become an eBay, you know, seller or whatever, and stuff like that. And I wanted to start him out small and slowly help him grow. And it's just like, it's like, okay, they're not self-motivated people. Well, okay, my daughter was fine. The only problem is that I was so uh used to working alone that she's like, Dad, just give me something to do. Just give me something to do. And I'm like, hey, how about you just sit here? I'll pay you. Just sit back and relax, do nothing. She goes, Dad, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to let you just sit there and pay me and I'm not doing anything. It's like, listen, I promise you, if you just stick this out, it'll go. And she's like, finally, I just didn't have enough work for her fast enough that she got bored and frustrated. My son, on the other hand, was just like, yeah, you know what? I think I could sleep in today and all this other stuff. And I'm like, listen, this is not how this is working and stuff like that. So my own attempts to introduce them into this world has not been all that fantastic, but that's okay. It's like I never had anybody show me the ropes, and I figured out if it was when I decided it was my path and stuff like that. Some interesting things though. Megan, who's 21, she was probably about 7 or 8 years old. If I had to guess, I could do the math if I needed to, but if she was younger. And for her first few years, she remembers what life was like as, me being an employee. She certainly remembers what life was like when financially, my wife and I were just like, life is tough financially here. The cool thing is she saw how life was starting to turn around a little bit financially when I started to gain more success as an insurance agent, and how that was really taking off. But then she saw also the immediate dive financially once I actually went into full-time self-employment, and she saw those first 18 months to 3 years of trying to figure things out. But here's the interesting thing that she has witnessed. She's seen, the life of the average employee, the life of a really well-to-do employee, the life of an entrepreneur who's making nothing working around the clock. But what's really cool is all of my kids, but specifically Megan, has the biggest overall view of what's possible when you completely take the ceiling off of your income. Literally, there is no limit as to how much money one can generate if you're in control of your own business and your own products and services and where you put your time, and you have all of that freedom. Now, don't get me wrong, the risks are equal to the potential rewards, but over time, if you can get used to failing and failing a lot, and usually avoiding failing more than twice at the same thing, you learn a lot about how things shouldn't be done, so that you can actually have a little bit more predictability in the systems and plans and strategies that do work. And yeah, so all of my kids now, unfortunately, know what's possible financially. I think I may have ruined them potentially for an income of an average employee at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Go ahead, Evan.
Well, I was gonna say that's interesting hearing you say that, because I'm 22, so I'm only a year older than your oldest kid. So that's interesting to hear how they've interpreted, seeing you as an entrepreneur. When you offered them places in your business, did you like really push them into taking it, or did you
No.
just kind of float the idea?
Yeah, I definitely did not push it. Matter of fact, I'm a solopreneur. I meaning I like my alone time. Matter of fact, I was not super excited about the fact that, I'm going to do this. But, at the same time, I love my kids and I want to give them every opportunity. And I'm going to find, regardless of what I like or don't like, I want to create this opportunity. If they're interested and they're showing interest, I want to encourage that interest, because I will tell you, each of my children have gone through the public school system, and I won't go political by any niche, but I will tell you that there is a conditioned belief system in this world that the appropriate necessary path is education, formal education, more education, certification, graduation, and then you go out and get an employee position, and this is how life is. And by the way, you buy lots and lots and lots of stuff, and you owe people lots and lots of money, and you just go in a hamster wheel. And I'm like, I think there's a different way of life. And I wanted to, if it took me giving up some of my alone time throughout my day, enjoying what I'm doing and coming up with other products and services that I can involve them in, I was more than happy to do that. Like I said, just for my oldest daughter, I wasn't fast enough for her, which is perfectly fine. And here's the other thing I can tell you. Uh, I have many flaws. I you guys may not have any of these things called flaws, but I have many flaws in my life. And my parenting isn't the one area of my life that I think is the most stellar. I don't think most people are going to write books on how awesome of a parent Cliff Ravenscraft has been. But one of the things that I can say is my favorite thing about my parenting is just giving my kids the freedom to be who they are. And by demonstrating, the ability just to say, if this doesn't work out, this doesn't work out. This is no big deal. And so it's like, I will encourage you to go down whatever path you want to go down. And if you want to come here, this is what it looks like here. But in essence, really what you're doing is you're just being my employee. And that's really not me teaching you entrepreneurship. In essence, if you want, anytime you want, you can ask me how things are going in my business, what decisions I'm making, all this other stuff. You could go, if you want to go to college and you want to check in and say, hey, Dad, how are things going in the business? What are you doing today? And all this other stuff. I'm happy to share all that stuff, but you don't have to sit here by my side all the time and stuff like this. And the other thing is just for me, I think sometimes it's like, well, the way that I learned was by going out and getting responsibility. And so one of the things that I was really excited for my son is for him to go out and get a job, to see what it's like to be at a place where you have to clock in and clock out. And if you don't clock in at the right time, they yell at you, or they get, something. And it's like, and all of a sudden, I want you to see what it's like to have your pay docked, or have your write up, or have all of this other. I want you to see and feel some consequences. And I want you to see what it's like to not be able to get vacation days when you want them, and all this stuff. I want you to experience all that goes along with being an employee. And I would love for you to experience the absolute limit that you have on your on your income as an employee. Go enjoy that world, embrace it, love it, find it, and then you'll see what opportunity you actually did have here. But and sometimes you have to just learn the hard way. And
Yeah.
I'm thankful for all the lessons that I learned the hard way. And I recognize it's like it is possible to learn things not the hard way. You can actually learn it the easy way, but I think usually it takes a little bit of perspective in life. And so I think for them to have it not work out here has been a part of their path that they're on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with
Yeah.
that. There's always a balance between making life easier for our kids and helping them or allowing them to learn life's lessons on their own. And the only way you can learn these lessons is through some kind of failure. Like you said, go to a job, show up late, see what happens. Do something or not want to take some time off and they say no, see what happens. That's life. That's how it works. But let me ask you this. I want to dive in a little bit to a couple of things, and I definitely want to bring Evan into this particular part. You mentioned bringing your daughter in and just kind of having her watch what you do. Do you have you say you're a solopreneur. Do you have any contractors that you use? In other words, are you still editing all your own podcasts?
Well, first of all, I don't edit podcasts, but if I needed to edit a podcast at this point, yes, I would edit all of my own podcasts.
Okay, so even just publishing them, obviously you don't edit because you don't have to cut out all your ums and all that. But
yeah, so if I sit down and record a podcast episode, let's just say I record for 45 minutes. I go in and basically transfer it over to from the SD card over to my desktop, open an Adobe Audition, run a multi-band processor, save it as MP3, upload it to Libsyn, publish it into my WordPress, and then file it away in my Dropbox. I can do all of that as quickly as I could send an email off to my assistant and say, hey, this is ready to publish.
Yeah. So I get that. I hear you. So from my perspective and one of the things that I used in my business to afford my sons an opportunity to see what entrepreneurship was about was to take some of those tasks, even though I could do them faster, even though I didn't have to pay anyone to do them, but to take some of those tasks and say, hey, do you want to learn how to do this skill? Not how to be an entrepreneur and the overreaching all of everything I do, but this particular skill. Do you want to learn how to do this and kind of take some of that off of my shoulders so that I can do other things? Because it's still time. I am definitely not as efficient in my process as you are. So that with Evan is exactly what I did when he was about 15 or 16. And I'm like, okay, I really don't want to publish. I don't want to do this editing anymore. Do you want to learn how to do this, Evan? And, maybe take it over and earn some extra money. And so he basically became a contractor of mine. And he chose to say, yeah, sure. And then same with Riley, his younger brother, who taught himself animation and all of this. I said, hey, do you want to make some animations for me and for my business and see how that works and see if we can publish some on social media and maybe do some audio, I don't remember what they're called now, but anyway, the little where you see the voice going up and down. Anyway, do you want to do some of these tasks for me? See where it goes. And so I became his first client, right?
Yeah.
And that afforded them. So first thing I did was they were not my employee. I knew that we would not have a very good relationship if I had to actually monitor their work. And all I had was, this has to be done by this particular time. You know how to do it. I don't care whether you do it 3 days in advance, 2 weeks in advance, or an hour in advance. It has to be done by this time. Done. Yeah. And they took it and that taught them. I've gone to Evan and said, hey, what happened to the podcast? It's not up yet. He's like, oh man, and go. It allowed them to be able to learn a skill. And both of them now, Evan does podcast editing, as you know, and Riley does animation and social media management. And I guarantee you, I know in my bones that is not where they will end up in life. This is just their first step into being able to learn those skills and learn those lessons in a safe environment.
Yeah.
Where...
Right? I love the idea of contractor. It's something that I did not consider with either of my kids. They're like, listen, Dad, can I work for you in the business? And and you can teach me the ropes or whatever of this or that. And I did not have the foresight to do it as a contractor. I think that would have been something. It's like, listen, I'll just, you tell me what one area most interests you. I
Yeah.
can, and then I'll hire you to do that. And you can not only do it for me, but you can do it for other people. That probably would have fostered entrepreneurship for them a little bit further. But no, whatever. I guess it's because when my mom and dad owned the insurance agency and in the family business, that you bring them on as an employee, and I can just tell you that approach did not work well for me. It's
It
like,
would not work for me either.
I'm going to guarantee you a paycheck regardless of whatever. It's like,
Oh, no.
But here's what I can say is, and I can't even remember now because it's a couple years back when Megan came to work for me, and Matthew wasn't an employee in my business. He's like, Dad, can you help me launch my business? And I'm like, sure. When you coming down? I don't know. It's like, yeah, go get a job. So, but for Megan, I can't remember what it was, but even then I think I was actually in a transition. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it's right when Megan, or right when I left Podcast Answer Man and I'm going into this. So I was trying to figure out what processes myself. I have had a contractor. I've contracted work in the past. So I had a virtual assistant going back to 2010. And I had her for many years, and she processed all my equipment orders and stuff like that. And so I've done those things. And then I had a different virtual assistant who did post-production for me for a period of time and stuff like that. But at the time when Megan came, I didn't have any processes for myself. I'm like, okay, Megan, here's what's going on in my business. I'm trying to figure out how to market a live conference, which I've never done before. And I don't know anything about how to market a live conference. And so, and by the way, I'm also, I've spoken at conferences, but I'm actually trying to figure out how I'm going to fill 7 1-hour speaking spots for myself at this conference. And I'm also trying to figure out how to navigate marketing this conference while filling empty seats in my next level mastermind, which is all a marketing situation, which is all relationship building.
Yeah.
And it's like,
No.
but I promise you, if you will just chill for a little bit and study this material, and it's like, listen to this Tony Robbins. Dad, you're not paying me to listen to Tony Robbins.
Exactly. Yeah. And I got to tell you, I wasn't some genius that thought this up with foresight and forethought and had this, it's going to be my master plan. And no, it just happened that I'm tired of doing this podcast editing. Do you want to learn this skill? Do you want to take it over and I'll pay you to do it?
Yeah.
It was really that simple. And I know, Evan, you could talk about the fact that you did that, but then again, it wasn't really working that fast for you. You weren't really making a huge amount of money with me as your only client. And then you went out and got a job somewhere. And how did that end up?
It did. It sucked a lot.
Good.
Yes. I got a job at a Starbucks and I lasted for like a month before I quit because I was like, okay, this is stupid. And by that point you had already given me the genius idea, which was, hey, why don't you do this for other people and charge them too? And I was like, when I was like, 17 or whatever, I was like, oh my God, okay, I'll try it. And then you sent me one, referral, and then that person sent me a referral and so on and so forth. But then, feeling pressure from society, right? You should get a real job. So I tried the Starbucks. It freaking sucked. Nothing against Starbucks. The drinks are fine, but like it was not enjoyable to work there for me personally. And so then I quit very fast. And I was like, nah, I'm just gonna stick with the whole business thing because I can work in my pajamas, and that's literally all that I want. That is my number one most important aspect of business, is to be able to work in my pajamas. And so Starbucks did not afford that for me. Entrepreneurship did, and of course, no income ceilings and choose my own hours, all that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, that Starbucks working somewhere besides myself definitely made me appreciate working for myself.
Yeah, that's one of the things. When Matthew went out and got his job, I said he's actually been working at DHL for well over a year now, but it was not intended, because we were sitting there and like, here's what I recommend that you do. You go out, you set a goal for how much you want to get paid by the hour at a day job or whatever. and you go out and get a job. And here's what I would recommend that you do until you find something that you like or love or whatever. Here, I recommend you go get a job at whatever rate is your goal, and you work there for 30 days. If after 30 days you're not enjoying it there, then you immediately begin applying somewhere else. And you simply make this commitment. I will not go to another position unless, number one, I absolutely love the idea of working for this company, or number two, my hourly rate is increased. And I mean, ideally, I mean, and the other commitment is that you will always give a minimum of 2 weeks notice to whoever you're currently working for. You can't just up and leave somebody. And so my thought was it'd be cool if Matthew had maybe 4 or 5, 6 jobs a year every year until you found something. It's like, I just wanted to encourage him to see what's possible, to not just do what a lot of people do, which is just like, what's the first thing that I can get? And I'll just stick with this. And the responsible thing to do is to always stay with what I currently have until it's no longer available. It's like, that's not the responsible thing to do.
No. Yeah.
So.
And if nothing else, I mean, I look at it really in parenting. I think you're a little harder on yourself than you need to be, which we all are as parents. I think you're probably a really good parent, just from the outside looking in and talking to you several times as I have. You are doing what I look at is, am I starting my kids higher than I started? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Or further along than I got to start, or with less mindset issues than I had, right? That's really the goal. You can't take it all away. You can't solve the problems of the world for them and have a utopia for them, but you can at least start them higher than you did. And I know you're doing that. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So by doing that, you're affording them that opportunity to see that things can be different. They don't have to start in an insurance agency and work there until they retire, whatever that looks like. I don't know what that looks like. I know very few people.
Thankfully, I don't as well.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about this is I came from a family insurance agency, a family-run insurance agency. My grandfather started it in 1937. My dad took it over, but my dad loved it. I mean, he did. And he actually left the insurance business from his father to go pursue some other things. And then he came back to the insurance and eventually took over the agency. The great news for me is that I did not actually enter the family business until I was like 23, 24 years old. So at that point, I'd already had lots of other jobs. I mean, in a variety of different things and all sorts of positions, all the way up to managers and stuff like that. So I had tons of experience. And when my mom and dad came and invited me to join the family business, it wasn't to actually become an insurance agent. They knew that my number one desire and passion at that time was to be a pastor one day. And I said, I will come work for you. The reason why they hired me is because of my computer technical skills, and Windows 95 had just come out. They had just bought this agency management system that would allow them to run everything by computers. And they knew nothing about computers, and I did. And so they said, we'll hire you to come set up computers. Great. And I said, as long as two conditions. As long as, number one, you'll never expect me to get my insurance license because I have no anticipation of selling insurance and becoming a part of this family business long term. Number two, if I'm ever offered the opportunity to pastor a church one day, no matter how much less money I make, you got to be okay with it. And they said, okay. Long story short, I end up getting bored after setting up their computers. I get an opportunity to make lots of extra money if I get my license. I got it, and I was in it. But I will tell you this, it was not a healthy family business environment. I love my mom. I love my dad. I do not love working with them. And so it was an excruciatingly painful experience for those years, most of it, to work for my mom and dad, and to have all of my time with my mom and dad outside of the office be talking about what happens at the office. And I'm like, and so in many ways, I was even that tainted from the idea of involving my own kids in my business. It's like, listen, go out and find your own way, make your own way. Let me tell you, there is no pressure for you to get all of this stuff figured out. I mean, now, if you go and start a family and start having kids, yes, there's a lot of pressure on you. But until then, go and explore this amazing world. Go out and make your own way, do your own thing, dare to dream your own dream. And that's really, if there's anything, that's what I've most wanted to instill in my kids. I don't care if you want to go get a job. If you want to be a high school teacher, then be a high school teacher. One of the things that I've learned through my experience, especially given the fact that most of what I'm concerned about isn't being an entrepreneur, but helping people with their mindset, is having the understanding that you get to decide what success is for you. And my belief is this: success is any person who is doing what they're doing because they intentionally chose to do it. And so few people in our world today actually intentionally choose what they do. They do what is expected of them, is what most people do. And I just don't want my kids to ever be burdened by my expectations of what they should do. And I don't want my kids to be burdened by the expectations of how Evan so eloquently put it, the conditioned societal norms. I just want them to go and make their own way. There is no right way to do life.
No.
I've heard a lot of definitions of success, but to be completely honest, I think I like yours the best.
Yeah.
Of the ones that I've heard. It's true, doing something because you intentionally chose to do it.
So I heard that first from Earl Nightingale. Have you ever heard of The Strangest Secret audio program from Earl Nightingale?
Maybe.
I've heard the name.
I
yeah.
know. Yeah.
So I would encourage you to write this down, look it up on YouTube. You'll find it. It's an audio program. It's about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on what version of it you'll come across. But you'll hear two different things what he will tell you is that the definition of success, and I can't do an Earl Nightingale voice, but he says the definition of success, it is the progression towards a worthy idea, or the progressive reality towards anyway, you're making progress towards a worthy goal. That's what he will tell you technically is the definition. But if you listen closely, and especially if you go download the transcript of this, you'll even capture it even closer. And what I gravitated, he says, so basically, success is anyone who is doing what they're doing because they intentionally chose to do it. And he says in that way, and you'll specifically hear him say, so if somebody is a school teacher or a janitor, and if that's what they've intentionally chose to do it, that person is a success because they're doing what they chose to do. And I'm like, wow. It has nothing to do with how much money's in the bank or any of this other stuff, where you live, how many cars you have. None of this stuff. No, it's like, am I actually living life on my terms? That's my definition of success. Am I able to work in my pajamas?
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is so true. I mean, Evan's grandfather, my husband's father, actually his grandfather, was a janitor in the local high school for 40 years. And, he had thank you cards given to him by the classes that graduated from that school. And when he was getting ready to retire, they actually took up a collection of all the teachers and students and parents and sent him, because he was from Norway and he had not been back to Norway since he moved to the United States when he was about 17. And so when he was getting ready to retire, they took up a collection and sent him back to his hometown in Norway to be able to visit his family and so his life, obviously he was doing what he enjoyed. He was doing what he intentionally did to raise his family, to have his life, in his community. And, I know my sons aspire to do the same thing. That story inspires them to not just judge based on how much money they make or what power they have supposedly, or influence, or any of those things, to do what I love your definition, to progress toward a meaningful goal. Every day I wake up, Cliff, every day I'm blessed enough to wake up, all I want to do is have interesting conversations with extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. That my life is absolutely a success when I get to do that.
Absolutely.
And to provide that opportunity for my sons to do what they want to do if they're lucky enough to wake up, because we all, one day will not be lucky to wake up, do what you want to do now. So, anyway, I've monopolized the conversation enough, but, Evan, anything else to add to all that incredible knowledge and wisdom that Cliff just dropped on us?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm successful based on Cliff's definition, which is pretty exciting to know.
You're definitely successful. If you want to find out how how life even gets more fun, is when you define success as learning and growing. For me, that's really, for me, all life really is. If you want to know what's life all about, it's about learning and growing. And then, of course, for what purpose? So that I may be of greater contribution to others, so that I can support even more life where other people can learn and grow. Now, where do we learn and grow most? This is the most fun part. Through failure.
Yes.
Through failure. It's never. So one of the things that I think of, and because I used to be an incredibly high achiever, and I still would consider myself to be a quote unquote high achiever. But I used to be a high achiever because I wanted to be a successful person. And I used to believe that success lies somewhere down the road after I've achieved a certain number of goals. Once I've become completely debt free, have an emergency fund, and, climbed every step of the baby steps of Dave Ramsey, I will then be a success. Or once I'm independently wealthy and never have to work another minute in my life, that's when I'm successful. Or if I have a business, or if I have 1 million subscribers on YouTube and one of those plaques behind me, that's when I'll be successful, and all that other stuff. And everything in my life changed when I learned success is anybody who's doing what they're doing because they intentionally chose to do that thing. And if you go back to the other definition of success by Earl Nightingale, it's the worthy progression towards, it's the progressive realization. That's the progressive realization of a worthy idea. That's how he says it. Anyway, it's not in actually achieving any goal. It's who I become in the process of chasing a goal. So success is, number one, having a goal and going after it, but never getting the goal. That's my goal is not to get the goal. My goal is to learn. My goal is to grow. And so one of my favorite things is actually setting big, huge, crazy, audacious things and going after it. And it's like, listen, for me to be able to achieve that, I'm going to have to change everything from the ground up. I'm going to have to reinvent myself. I'm going to have to study. I'm going to have to learn and all this other stuff. And you know what I love? Okay, don't get me wrong. Little secret. I do like it when I succeed. Like when I set a goal and I'm like, I'm going to go after it, and people say, there's no way you're going to be able to do that. Ha, watch me. Okay. Little secret just between the three of us here. Nobody else can know this. I actually like it when I succeed. All right. But I love it even more when I fail. I love it even more when I fail publicly in front of everyone, because number one, it knocks me down to my level of where I need to be, because sometimes I take life and myself too seriously, and there's no reason for me to do that. I've learned that that's just all a bunch of ego, and that really doesn't serve anyone, including myself. So I like to be brought down to the level of where I need to be. All right. Number two, when I fail, and I fail publicly in front of other people, I can either say, oh, woe is me, and self-condemn and do all the things and be fearful of the judgment or others. Or I could say, man, what can I learn about what just went down? I just learned a ton of things about how not to market event. I just learned a ton of things about how not to do an email list. I just learned a ton of things about how not to create a podcast episode. I just learned a ton of things about how not to do this. And the thing is if I continue to proceed forward, if I actually stay locked on target for a goal long enough, and I do eventually succeed, dude, a lot of people, I was like, oh, Cliff, can you just tell me how you succeeded? It's like, sure, let me tell you about all the things that didn't work, and here's the things that did. By the way, this is a description of what worked for me. It's not a prescription for you, because your results may vary, but I'm happy to come along and encourage you, because it's not necessarily in the attainment of the goal. It's who you will become in the process of learning how to operate your mind through the process that will change everything in your life.
And that right there that you just described, I know through your parenting you have taken that ability to be better with failure than your parents were or that you were when you were younger, and provide an environment and an opportunity for your kids to be more comfortable with failure. And that, number one, will help them with success more than any skill, more than any hiring them, more than anything else. So have you done that? Are they a little more comfortable with failure than you were at their age?
Absolutely. They're hands down. Matter of fact, that's the one of the things that our kids definitely, matter of fact, there is no measurement of myself. Am I, am I succeeding? Am I failing? Blah, 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 blah. Here's the interesting thing. Ask any of my kids, because you guys will probably at some point get to meet my kids if you haven't done so already, Mary Catherine.
I think I did. I think you're oldest. Yeah.
So if you ever get a chance to see them again, any of my kids, I want you to ask them this question. In all of your schooling, elementary school, middle school, high school, or college, how many times did your dad ask to see your grades? And do you know what they will all tell you? It's never happened, because life is not judged on the results of a test. It's the life is judged on who you are and how you can feel about yourself, regardless of the results on a test.
Amen.
And that's what and life is nothing but a series of ongoing tests.
That's right.
That's all it is.
And tests, hopefully, that we give ourselves, not just our external, but hopefully tests we put ourselves up for.
Both externally and internally. I mean, there are certainly things that are within our control and we can put ourselves through some tests, but quite frankly, there are some things that are just outside of our control, and those are very well tested as well. And so many people, what I have found is what pretty much every person on this planet wants is a pleasant, peaceful life. They want to feel a level of peace. They want to feel a level of certainty. They want to have a certain level of joy in their life. And I've been majorly influenced from some other world philosophies in the past 18 months of my life, things that I would have never dared investigate earlier. And one of the things that I have loved about this is I've realized some important words of a man that I respect very much, Jesus, who says this: "Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest for your souls." I will give you that peace that you're looking for. And he says, all you have to do is seek this first. And he's talking about this kingdom. And he says, and it's within you. And so all of that to say is I've come to this understanding. And one of the things that I'm teaching my kids, and I'm trying to teach everybody that I know, is that really what you most want is not a lot of money in the bank. It's not a successful, full-time, self-employed entrepreneurial business. It's not all of this other stuff. Really what you want is you want peace, love, and joy. And until you find that inside of yourself, you'll never find it in the world that will last. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, there is happiness in big, huge paychecks. There's happiness in vacations. There's happiness in that next promotion. There's happiness in setting a goal and achieving it. But it's fleeting. It goes away. But there is peace, love, and joy that is found inside that is not dependent on anything externally. And that's what I try to teach my kids. That's what I try to consistently live out in my daily life.
Absolutely. So basically wrapping this up and thinking about you not being here for your kids sometime in the future, and them having to rely on the legacy you've provided them, not usually monetary or anything or asset wise. We're not talking about that kind of legacy. We're talking about who they are comes from the legacy you provide them. When you're no longer with them, what kind of legacy will they be able to rely on for their own ability to be an entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, I have no desire one way or another whether or not they're an entrepreneur. But if they want to be an entrepreneur or whatever they want to do, my legacy that I have left them is countless thousands of hours of me authentically, transparently putting out my voice of these are the things that I've experienced. These are the things that I think. These are the things that I believe. These are the things. And even more so, I hope that if my kids ever were to browse my content in their later years after I'm gone, I hope they don't get bored around year 1, 2, or 3, because I had all sorts of ideas and thoughts and beliefs about how the world worked then. And I just hope that over time they see, wow. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I do know is this, okay, because my kids are already seeing the radical changes. And so it would be interesting for my kids to go and hear some of my earliest content, 2005, 6, 7, and 8. And if they listen to anything that I say, that it's like, that's not the guy I know. It's like, man, that guy has so much, he is full of fear, worry, self-doubt. He's full of self-condemnation. He's riddled with limiting beliefs. He's riddled with this. And it's like, oh my gosh, my dad grew so much. And that gives me so much hope. And so if there's anything, it's like, listen, if my dad can go from what I'm hearing in this early stuff to what I knew my dad actually accomplished in this world and how he went, and I got to witness so much, I think I've left them more than a legacy.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of legacy that I think really, lasts and that they can really use. Right. So I really like that.
One thing I will say is I learned this from Tony Robbins. I quote Tony a lot because I listen to Tony a lot. And this made such an impact on me. He says, success in any area of life is 20% skill, 80% mindset. And if we can learn how to control our mind and our emotional state and thereby if we can control our mind and our emotional state, we can control our behavior and our actions. And man, once you have that, 20% of anything is just knowing what to do. Most people know what to do, but man, if you could just get yourself to do the things you already know, rather than go, well, maybe it's like, you know what, I'm kind of bored and I'm unmotivated and all this other stuff. I'm not going to be able to, it's like, I just can't get myself to do this. I keep failing, blah, blah, blah. I know what I'll do. I'll go learn something new that I should do. And it's like, so that I can not do that. No, so if there's anything, it's mindset. It's all about controlling the mind.
It really is. And then that's what, that's what I believe wasn't really like, this was something I learned when I was in school, elementary, middle, high school, or college. It was 100% about skills, and 0% about mindset. They would instill, negative mindsets that would give you mindset obstacles along with the skills that you probably won't use. So yeah, I like your thinking significantly better.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, Cliff, thank you so much. Every time I get a chance to chat with you, whether it's in person, which is the best, or, on a podcast interview or online, or on Clubhouse. I know we've chatted a few times on Clubhouse too. I just so appreciate the sharing. You're just sharing your path, your journey, your knowledge, your mindset to be an example to all of us. I know I draw from that. And I so appreciate that, having that as a beacon, as a foundation, as all the things that I look for to further my own life towards success. Because I agree, the reason I want to talk to interesting people doing extraordinary things is because I learn so much from other people. And even if it's what not to do, which I've learned a lot of that from people, yes. But also if it's what to do and how another perspective. That's usually, I think, what I learn most often is just another perspective. And that's what opens our minds to other opportunities. So as an idea, we know where to find you, but, kind of end us out with where can people find out more about you and what you do?
Oh gosh, my favorite place to send people is mindsetanswerman.com/free. If you go to mindsetanswerman.com/free, You will land on a page that has a 90-second video clip of me tearing up 3 $100 bills on the stage and throwing it in the trash and explaining that if I don't change the way that I think, I'm always going to be throwing money away. And that's how I almost died in the hospital as a result of it. Now, my thing is if you watch that 90-second clip, you'll definitely want to watch the entire 1-hour opening keynote address to my Free the Dream conference. And if you put your name and email address in there, my promise is that if you watch this 1-hour talk, it will change the rest of your life. You'll never be able to go back to see the world the same way again. And then I always tell people, I said, listen, if you sign up for it and you decide it's like, okay, Cliff, that was a little bit of hyperbole there, then you just unsubscribe and you never have to hear from me again. But that's the best place to start. And then if you do that, I think I currently have 12 weeks of Monday morning emails that you'll get just to hear some mindset stuff that'll help you along the journey ahead.
MindsetAnswerman.com/free, right?
MindsetAnswerman.com/free.
I'm telling you, people in the audience, parent entrepreneurs, kids, that will be an hour spent if you choose to watch the whole thing. I know I've done it. That will be an hour spent that will change your life, that will open your mind, that will open possibilities. I highly encourage you to do it. And I just thank you again.
Oh, thank you so much. I have always enjoyed every interaction that I've had with you, Mary Catherine, and also Evan, several times that I've had the opportunity to connect with you as well. I'm impressed by who you are and what you're doing in this world as well. And I look forward to many more engagements in the future.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. Hopefully you came away with valuable tools you can use in your business, life, and relationship with your kids. If you want to hear more about our mission, or if you want more insights into cultivating your parent entrepreneur power, join our movement to make entrepreneurship more accessible to parents and their kids at parentrepreneur.power.com.